Hello and welcome to a first look exploring session by Beyond Shakespeare. Us. I will be your host for today, Eric Karoulla, and these are the wonderful readers that we will be reading this play, which I've not told you about. It's called A Challenge for Beauty. It's as it hath been sundry times acted by the King's Majesty's servants at the Blackfriars and at the Globe, on the Bankside, and it is written by the one and only Thomas Heywood. As far as we know, this was printed in 1636 and was performed probably between 1634 and 1636. Or, well, I mean, maybe even after that, since as far as I can tell, plays were printed once they were popular, so probably performed also after that. I'm guessing, I don't know. I don't know enough about these plays, the history side. Anyway, I shall go and introduce our wonderful readers so we can start this interesting play, which is set in Portugal, apparently, maybe. I'm not sure where it's set, actually. Well, anyway, reading, without any further ado, reading Centella, a Clown, and Valladaura.
It's Alan in Suffolk.
Reading Isabella, Queen Isabella, for those of you who don't know. Petrocella, Hellena, and a Turk captain we have.
Lois in London.
Reading Sebastian, Aldana, Leonera, and Ferrers we have.
Hi, I'm Lynn. I'm in the Northwestern United States.
And also Sebastian is the King of Portugal, in case you get. So, and last but certainly not least, we have reading the prologue, which obviously is not last. Pineda, and a servant we have.
Rachel in Canada.
And as I said, I'm your host, Eric Karoulla, and I'll be reading Manhurst, Bonavida, stage directions, and trying to keep this flowing as far as, I can manage. So without further ado, prologue, please take it away.
The Roman and Athenian dramas far differ from us, and those that frequent are in Italy and France, even in these days, compared with ours, are rather jigs than plays. Like of the Spanish may be said, and Dutch, none versed in language, but confess them such. They do not build their projects on that ground, nor have their phrases half the weight and sound our labored scenes have had. And yet our nation, already too much taxed for imitation in seeking to ape others, cannot quit some of our poets who have sinned in it. For where before great patriots, dukes and kings presented for some high, fascinorious things, were the stage subject. Now we strive to fly in their low pitch, who never could soar high. For now the common argument entreats of puling lovers, crafty bawds, or cheats. Nor blame I their quick fancies who can fit these queasy times with humors flashed in wit, whose art I both encourage and commend. I only wish that they would sometimes bend to memorize the valors of such men, whose every names might dignify the pen, and that our once applauded Roscian strain in acting might be revived again. Which you to countenance would this stage make proud, and poets strive to key their strings more loud.
And well, I'm going to pause there because I think I feel like this prologue is very general. It doesn't really tell you. Usually, you get like sort of things about the play, or sort of, yes, we will present this beautiful drama. Then again, I mean, John Lilly also has similar things. Anyway, I will allow you to discuss this prologue because I think some of it went over my head actually. Lois.
Yeah, it is actually quite interesting. I mean, I think he is sort of preparing for the play that follows, since it appears to be a historical drama, and saying that, it's about time to do some serious subject and not the very lightweight things. I don't know exactly what he's talking about that other people have been writing lately, but it's very interesting that he talks about the sort of stuff they're doing in Italy and France are more like jigs than plays. and even the Spanish. I mean, the Spanish, I just saw La Vida es Sueño, so I'm full of Spanish drama at the moment. And Spanish drama is written in a mixture of verse forms, some of which are stanzaic and some of which are really kind of almost GNS. And in fact, when people try to translate them faithfully, it ends up looking like Gilbert and Sullivan, just because it's there are just so many complex rhyme schemes and so on. So that may be what he's getting at, that it's more like a jig than a play, because there's all this rhyme instead of the kind of normative blank verse. But also this bit about, nor have their phrases half the weight and sound our labored scenes have had. I think there is an awareness that English drama is much more thoughtful and more developed than any other drama of the period, which is true.
But then he goes, our nation too taxed for imitation, seeking to ape others is interesting as well. It's kind of, don't copy people, but hey, we have, all this going for us. Well, also, I think it was in one of Johnson's plays where we had I think it was the case must be altered or will be altered, or whatever the title was.
The case is altered,
The case is altered, yes. There's a scene where they talk about how audiences are different abroad compared to English audiences, which might also, I don't know, compare with this as well. Although that's much earlier, I feel. Alan.
I'm just wondering, in fact, given that this was both a court piece and also at the Globe, whether part of this is, let's have a dig at the foreigners anyway. That always goes down well with the crowd. Which is a standard trope in British political life for centuries.
Even now.
I just wonder if most plays being written at this period were about puling lovers, crafty bawds, or cheats. I mean, that again sounds mainly like imitating Roman comedy, which does deal with, crafty bawds and cheats and so on. But I don't really know whose plays he's thinking of.
Though I do like to think that he's kind of going, everything else is crap, mine are the best. Which is basically like his attitude throughout, I think.
I mean, the bit about humors flashed in wit might be Richard Broome, who saw himself as a kind of continuation of Ben Jonson. And hence humors. I mean, people generally associate them with Jonson. But in fact, Broome's plays, as we will someday no doubt find out, are quite good.
But also, this is quite late. I mean, like we were talking before we started recording about how this is like 1634, 1636, somewhere there. So it's quite late, not just in Heywood's career, but also just compared to the rest of the things that we've read. So we might not really have much of a frame of reference. And I guess sort of Spanish wars have happened and all that sort of. I mean, we had for a period they hated Dutch people, for a period they hated Spanish people, Catholicism, and Prince of Orange, all that stuff. So, it's various.
Well, now we're in the 30 Years' War.
I was gonna ask. I was about to Google that. So the continent is embroiled in a very bloody and what will end up being a very protracted, semi-religious, semi-political conflict.
That's interesting.
The 30 Years' War it changes the. I mean, I don't think that the English have any way of knowing this, but it changes the balance of power in Europe because it costs France and Spain so much blood and treasure that Spain was a global superpower before it and not so much after.
It really tears up Germany.
Rachel, you read it. Any thoughts before we proceed to the next basically to the action?
No, sorry. Not yet. I'll formulate some as we go along.
Basically, you want to discover more of this play. So let us indeed discover more of this play. Act 1, Scene 1 enters Sebastian, the King of Portugal, Isabella, the Queen, Lord Bonavida, 2 other lords, Centella, Pineda, with a great train of attendants.
The united blood of Spain and Portugal now meet in us. The hereditary hopes that were but in conception now have birth, and what was but idea till this day hath put on essence.
Joy
to the
Prince and Princess.
This hail from you we count a blessing to us, and more than common greeting, as from gentlemen crowned both in blood and virtue.
These perhaps see with judicial eyes unto those joys you gain by enjoying us.
We find them great.
But great? We looked for a superlative, and if there be a fit and known degree above compare, to have been marked with that. We would not have a thought conceived of us which should be mixed with rapture, and what you term joy transported into ecstasy. But great.
Methinks addition great enough for any mortal woman.
For such goodness, your highness might have lent an attribute of far more weight and splendour.
Teach us that.
I shall, who would be weighed unto my worth, and yet in all my poise lose not a dram, put you, the proudest lady, into one scale, and me into another.
You shall mount her, if pride will do it.
This beauty, virtue, birth, shall unto mine own centre sink myself, and lift her into naught save smoke and air.
Yea, that upon my knowledge.
Fair Isabella, instruct me modestly in what I err, and if I shall but scant you in the least, I'll make you large amends.
Why, even in that, in terming me but fair. Fair Isabella, it is a milkmaid's title. Every swain bestows it on his mistress, ne'er so mean. Your city damsel scorns the word, because 'tis common in the country. And shall we, bred in the court's rich glory, entertain it? What's great and fair? We would be termed divine. Such as would give us our full character must search for epithets and study phrase.
Examine but plain Mantuan, and he'll tell you what woman is.
Great Prince of Portugal, observe in me thine happiness. Thank not heaven so much that thou wert born, nor born a prince, but that thou enjoyest us. For that great blessing give thy creation thanks.
So we well may.
Behold, I here expose me to all eyes in universal censure. Lives a lady, greater in blood. If any that gainsay, Spain shall maintain it by her potency. Search Italy and all those climes beyond. Come by the Alps back and view France throughout. Produce me the most excellent German Frau. Examine England, which some say breeds beauties beyond all these, and Prince, your Portugal to equal this. This do I boast of those that are not mine? Say we ascribe our birth only to fortune and to nature form. Count both these accidental. There's a third, virtue remains, and even in that we dare with any princess of the world contest. Come, your free censures, lords.
Madam, I hold you in least of these not to be paralleled.
In my opinion, madam, you so far exceed all these that yet mine eyes have seen, heard, or read of.
Oh, base flattery.
Done unto those before time wondered at. You in our age appear a miracle, and never to be matched.
We observe in you a kind of enforced silence, mixed with scorns. Your tongue hath been so backward to pronounce so definitive a sentence.
No then, madam, I must confess, although a woman's son, yet cannot I dissemble, neither would I, should I be racked and tortured. Then, with pardon unto the prince and you, thus much I think, I not deny, but you by birth are royal, beauteous, or else I should condemn mine eyes, and say they wore false lights. For your known virtues, traitor he were that should but question them. I make this attestation yet, sweet princess, these praises you confer upon yourself, though they be just and true, from your own tongue loose part of their great luster. In these, or me, they would have had more sweetness, better sound, but from a Tuscan tongue, or Portuguese, English, or French, or any stranger's mouth, much more harmonious relish. I have held it still as a maxim. My best judging days, such doubt their worths are force themselves to praise.
Who fitter to speak truth than truth's own tongue?
Yet arrogance in truth may blemish it.
Of arrogance, us?
Called, if you please, self-love. Besides in man or woman, since the first nature hath yielded none so absolute, to whom she made no fellow. First for beauty, if Greece afforded a fair Helen, Troy her paralleled with a Polyxena. For wisdom, Rome presented a Cornelia, and Lydia a Sosipatra. Chastity, Lucrece, of whom the Romans so much boast. Did not the self-same city breed a Portia, who, when she heard her husband Brutus slain, kept from all other engines, swallowed fire, and by that means to meet with him in death? Of such I could yet produce yet infinite, and madam, though I must confess you rare and most completely perfect in all these, yet not so choice a piece, but the wide world may yield you a competitor.
As you are prince, and ever hope to have the sweet fruition of those pure gifts that man so much disdains, grant me one free demand.
Speak and obtain.
His banishment from Spain and Portugal, never hereafter to be capable of honor, of renown, place, or office, till he can find, produce, and set before us our match in face and bosom. Birth we set by, but be she woman, and can balance us. In both or either, he redeems his exile. Without such, to return forfeits his head. Deny this, prince, you banish us your bed.
Most unpeered lady, that not for 10 worlds, if an husband can a vassal be to such approved virtues, I am he. Lord Bonavida, you have from her tongue an express doom that cannot be revoked. 'Tis like the Persian seal, unalterable. And come, my divine princess, he shall know in his just doom what zeal to you we owe.
Exit King Sebastian and Queen Isabella, Centella, Pineda with the great train of attendants. Is this truth's merit? Can the court find place for none but flatterers, and I must be made the first example of her tyranny? Shall I be made a precedent through Spain to deter men from speaking in the court what's just and honest? Nay, we term this law, or mere oppression. What an infinite task am I confined to? One is virtuous, no cloister scarce could but supply me with, and never travel further. But the doubt is whether it harbor in so smooth a skin as fair a face I might produce with ease produce. But where's the virtue then? Since few there are that wear both these descriptions, chaste and fair, in all his 12 great labors. Hercules was not less tasked by Juno, and the clown enters.
Your news flies apace, and that plucked me by the ears already. Well, whosoever pronounced that sentence, I hope nobody hears me. I would his Portugal skin were tanned into Spanish leather, neither cut into some slovenly boot, to be dabbled in the dirt without a galosh, or snipped into a St. Martin's jerkin that never came within the scent of a perfumer's shop.
Had she proposed to find her match for pride, there had been then no hope at all, for that had been the harder task of two.
Instead of confined, had his doom been to have been coffined, then there'd have been some comfort. He might still have kept his country, in plain Portuguese and Spanish, both banished.
I am sure thou hearest the news.
How can I choose, being in the mouth of every Diego, which I no sooner heard, but I so sought that I might find you, and so find you, never hereafter to lose you. But without this is no place for me, and without me, no country can be a country for you. And so, a fig for Spain, and a prune for Portugal.
I both accept and will reward thy love, if my fate be to revisit home. First these, then several countries we will try to find out this choice piece.
That's you and I.
They exit. Any thoughts aside from that? I have to admit that when I was reading the part about Helen of Troy and stuff, I could hear and feel Alan groaning internally, just because of the whole. He's like, look, I've written these plays, by the way, all the Iron Age and Metal Age plays. For Rachel, who's not been with us, this is just a series of plays that he wrote on, like, how the gods became the gods, and in Greek myth, and basically, that whole myth cycle up to the founding of Troy. Any thoughts? Lois, then Alan. Right.
Well, I don't know. I mean, Isabella's incredible vanity is just unbelievable, really. It's hard to imagine anybody going on like that.
Alan, then.
Yeah, I think in the early part of that scene, until they were directly addressed by Isabella, doing I'm the greatest shtick, I think pretty well all of the comments from each of the three courtiers is actually an aside of, oh Christ, she's off again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you could have quite a lot of fun with that on stage.
Yeah.
The one who's coming in, I'm the greatest, I'm the celeb on the planet.
Yeah.
And the others go, oh, for God's sake, throw a bucket of water over it.
Yeah. Take a cold shower, or well, maybe not that. Anyway, Lynn.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it starts out looking like high politics. King of Spain has married. The King of Portugal has married the Queen of Spain, and uniting the Iberian Peninsula, which, reunion and splitting of Spain and Portugal happened several times over the course of the Middle Ages and the early modern period. Portugal wants to be its separate country, and Spain wants the whole peninsula united. So I was like, oh, it's high politics, but no, it's folktale. Because this incredibly narcissistic queen tells her critic, you're going to be banished until you can find someone as beautiful as me. Of course,
and
he's
as virtuous and all that stuff.
Yeah, right. And she just doesn't have to be as highborn. I'll give you that. I'll give you a buy on that. Yeah, it's like she's never read a play before.
Yes.
Well, I guess also it's it's the title. It's like a challenge for beauty. I mean,
Yeah,
okay, we didn't get it dropped in yet, but it's very yeah. But it's also, it feels very international, because she does kind of go, you could search all the globe, or all the known world, sort of civilized world, Italy, France, Germany, England, Portugal, and I don't know, it's interesting how much Heywood actually knows about these places, or not. Lois.
Yeah, the other sort of Heywood touch actually is the clown, who seems to be a very nice person. I mean, he's quite prepared to follow his master anywhere, into exile, and is terribly upset to hear the news. Clowns are often rather amoral figures, or, even rather malicious. But Heywood's clowns generally are like that, I think. I mean, if you remember in the If You Know Not Me plays, I think the clown was very devoted to the Princess Elizabeth. And, he generally seems to be trying to help people who are out of favor.
Rachel.
I'm not sure that I understood the clown's first speech wishing someone's.
I was going to ask about actually.
I'm not sure how nice this clown actually is.
Well, yeah, I think, it says whoever pronounced that sentence, which is the sentence of banishment,
yes.
I would like him to be, cut into little pieces. But I mean, since in fact it's actually due to the Queen that the sentence is pronounced. No, I think that because it's just a very extreme reaction, isn't it? pull off his skin, make boots out of it, or make a jerkin out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very grim image.
Yeah. Well, it is, but it's also just, I am so mad.
But also he doesn't talk about food, which is I mean, he talks about like a fig for Spain and a prune for Portugal, which is, but he doesn't do what clowns usually do, which is like, I'm hungry, I'm horny, where's the food, where's the money, and that kind of thing. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, in fact, whether the clown description is slightly misleading us, because we're getting into a stereotype, and I'm just wondering whether he's actually intending to be more of the sort of the clever rustic.
Yeah. I mean, clown didn't mean funny guy necessarily. It usually meant, and rustic was implied in the clown.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right.
Well, I guess also it's like you had specific actors who would play the clown, like
well, like Heywood himself at one point.
Or Tartleton, all those guys.
Yeah.
Whose names I can't pronounce.
Great line, a fig for Spain and a prune for Portugal.
Oh, that's awesome.
Spanish fig was poison, apparently. I mean, that was kind of euphemism for poison.
That's not ideal.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we move on?
Well, this could be, I mean, Spanish pride was notorious, and given that, well, Spain is on the other side. I mean, it's the Habsburg Empire, really, the whole Roman Empire fighting on the Catholic side in the war. So this may be why Heywood is finding it useful to depict Spanish pride at its most extreme.
But there's a problem going, does this relate to the court at the time? But I mean, I can't possibly know that because my history is not that good. So, yeah, Lois.
Well, I mean, if this is the early 30s, it's now, I suppose, nearly 10 years since Prince Charles went to Spain, hoping to take the Infanta by storm and bring her back to England, and it was all kind of a disaster. And he almost immediately proceeded to marry the French princess. And Middleton, of course, wrote The Game at Chess, which we have performed, which is a very anti-Spanish kind of play, I mean, attacking Spain and Catholicism and so on. So I think that sort of feeling is perhaps behind this.
Yeah, maybe.
Lynn. It's complicated though, because the person, the Henrietta Maria, right, who was King Charles I's wife, was an observant Catholic and was allowed to have mass in the palace, and this was a huge cause of tension in Charles' administration. So she's not Spanish, but she's still an observant Catholic, which is kind of like basically if Mamie Eisenhower had been a card-carrying communist, you know, it was like, so yeah, the 30 Years' War was really complicated. It was kind of Catholics against Protestants, but the French aligned with the Protestant side, so it was political. It was a mess that destroyed continental Europe, basically.
Well, without further ado, we shall move to Act 1, Scene 2. Enter Petrocella and Aldana, her father.
Why, how now, mistress daughter, have you conquered the West Indies, that you wear a gold mine on your back? This wearing will make your father's revenues shrink.
I'll be so bold as stretch them on the tenters, and they do.
You're a good jewel the whilst.
And jewels must be set in gold, father. I'll not lose the least dram of my luster.
You will not. And to what end suits all this bravery, pray?
To a good end, if my aim be steady. Hear you the news at court?
Of Valladaura's fight at sea? Is this golden bait for him?
Alas, poor sea calf, 'tis not his love I angle for. I fish deeper streams, and for a richer draught. Have you not heard of Bonavida's fortunes?
To parallel the queen in beauty and virtue, which he can never do.
Which he may easily do, her prerogative of birth set apart. What blemish do you see in me, that I may not be the woman?
Thou foolish girl, then compare glowworm with a star, and the star with the sun.
And the sun with a burning glass. Come, you're dim-sighted, father. Could you see with my eyes, and judge with my understanding, your comparison would hold. E contrario, I assure you.
Enter a servant.
Thy hasty news?
A noble gentleman.
Would speak with me. Bonavida in my conscience. Is not so, fellow?
I am not familiar with his name. He is of a noble aspect.
It can be none but he. Give me fresh ornaments. See your error now, father. Cupid and Venus, rich and new attires. Bonavida come. Live in my cheek, sweet beauty, eloquence attend my tongue, and perfection my behavior. Came he on horseback or carroched?
Neither of either. He is new come from sea.
Servant probably exits.
Certainly. He, having lost his labor in foreign search, he meets his hopes at home. The more my honor still. Fly and admit him. Your counsel, father. Shall I seem strange or familiar, wanton or serious, affable or peevish? I'm as full of humors as an April day of variety. How shall I bear myself?
Even in the midst mean, daughter, or let me see, and thou wilt be ruled by me. Bear thyself, even how thou wilt, provided it be to thy own profit and my further honor. Noble Bonavide has Valladaura daughter. Do you know this, gallant?
Enter Valladaura.
Valladaura I hate. This gentleman, acquainted with my beauty, revealed it to Bonavide. Sir, you have bound me to you, and comes to usher him to my presence.
Marry and welcome, my further honor still.
We stay his coming. Pray, sir, so return him.
Coming.
His, your master's, Bonavide's.
You speak riddles to me.
Be your own Oedipus, and dissolve them then.
Not you, Nuntius, from Bonavide, sir.
I am my own Nuntius, and my errand is love.
I hear no hurt, my further honor still.
When I am come in person to deliver to this rare beauty.
Honor upon honor.
My fortunes fly off too strong a wing to stoop so low a pitch. Is not Bonavida come yet?
As much as e'er I think he will, I think. Valladaura's a pretty piece of flesh. Seize him. Play not Aesop's cur. Lose not the substance in expectation of the shadow. 'Tis a dog's trick many ladies have practiced. Bosom him, do.
What, this mean creature?
And he were meaner, so thou getst profit, and thy father honor by it.
Are all my hopes repaid with scorn?
He begins to recoil. Clap him close to thy breast. He's gone, else.
Nay, Valladaura.
Have I laid out more breath in sacrificing vows and fruitless sonnets unto that beauteous shrine than e'er man did?
Come, be not passionate. Though I know both my worth and beauty, and understand what orb they move into, I am not so much infected with that same court sickness, philautia, or self-love, to scorn the service of any generous spirit.
How? Neither for thy profit nor thy father's honor?
In sober conference, then, what bounded service have you ever done my beauty that may challenge the least interest in my love?
As many as man can, I writ myself, truly, lover, ere I could write man, passing my service as a star, where she, the blessed idea of thy glorious feature, drawn by the curious working of my thoughts, gave me the better. I put out to sea, and there...
What did you?
For thy honor now, what didst at sea?
As much as any man.
That did no more than thou didst, thy further honor still.
Somewhat I did, but what? Let these deep wounds, undressed and unbound up, me deliver.
They are tongue-tied and cannot speak for blushing. Pretty ornaments for a soldier. How came you by them, trow? Honestly?
As noble Hector did by his, by an enemy far valiant than his.
I like that well, thy further honor still.
At sea I met with a bold man of war, and somewhat more, an Englishman. Oh, had your eye but fate denied that blessedness, witnessed our bearing, and how far the thought of you and your rare beauty carried me above my strength?
I should have said, but you are forced to acknowledge, that my beauty had been the better man.
I'm proud of that. My further honor still.
All this while you are beholding to my beauty, and I nothing in debt to your valor, which, for aught I gather, is nothing at all.
Nothing. To enter and hold single combat with such a daring opposite. Nothing. To take these dangerous wounds and bring them home undressed.
'Twas, I confess, somewhat to take these wounds, yet in my mind he gives the cognizance, has more reason to boast of it than he that wears it. Show me the man that gave you these wounds, and I'll commend his valor.
For giving them, knight, there's small honor in taking of them, though in my judgment. But what was he?
A man whose noble valour I must speak.
Good reason. He has paid you soundly for it aforehand.
In love and honour I shall ever serve him.
So I thought, for you wear a livery of his, cut to the skin and lined with crimson. Had you given it him, I should have taken you for the master. But pardon me, I soar too high for a serving man. Your ear, I am modest. Away, hie to the suburbs. Bribe some honest barber surgeon to wash off your dishonor and hear your infamy. That done, once learn this tenet of the war. The honor's more to give than wear a scar. Each coward may do that.
And exit Petrocella and her father, Aldana.
It's not my fate, but mine own imperfection, that makes the act in itself good and laudable, ill and distasteful, while my services done by some other they must needs become and grace the owner. Were my words delivered from any tongue but mine, they could not choose but win attention. Had my love been bred in any breast but mine, it could not thus be scorned and baffled. I, of all the world, most unfortunate. Neither act, word, or love can please your audience or compassion move.
And the exits. That's the end of Act 1, apparently. There's a part of me going, like, I have to admit that through that scene, like right up at the beginning with Petrocella or Petrocella and Aldana, I was thinking of Cinderella, but you've got like the sort of, oh yes, the slipper fits me, of course. The two sisters.
The
two
two
older
ugly sisters, and then
who think themselves like absolute beauties. I don't know if that's relevant, because Lynn was talking about fairy tales earlier as well, so that's what came to mind.
And this is quite consistent with that women around the kingdom hear about Bonavida's supposedly impossible mission to find as desirable a woman as Isabella, and all the rich, pretty highly adorned women think they're it. And here prediction, because I don't know, because I like to do predictions. Bonavida ends up finding some poor woman, some ordinary woman who is Isabella's rival in every way, but birth, and brings her back to court. So that's how a folktale would have it.
Yeah. Alan.
Yeah, I found it interesting that what we've got there is that Petrocella is almost mirroring Isabella's approach and style, and bow ye lower middle classes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's our signal that she's wrong. And I mean the fact that and there's just sort of this little extra, this sort of epicycle that Valladaura comes wooing.
Yeah.
And he does the man thing. I'm the most unfortunate person on the planet ever in history. It's like
Yeah.
no one but me is suffering. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. It's like I fought a duel for her, or we don't actually know if he did.
We don't
but
even
yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
of
would,
all the world am most unfortunate.
yeah.
What are you, 12?
I
Yeah.
mean, the actor might have been.
Yeah.
I do like how in the prologue he was like, oh yes, no, we will not have plays about puling lovers and all that stuff, and yeah, we get this instead, which is hilarious. The speech I didn't really fully understand was, as many as man can I rid myself as and truly lover I could write, like that. Just there's talk of a star and then talk of, yeah, it just confused me, I think. Maybe
Let's see.
Sorry, Lois.
Oh, yeah. Well, she says, what have you done? And he says as many things as anyone could. And he, yeah, I don't quite understand passing my service as a star, but I mean, he writ himself lover. That is, he declared that he was a lover before he was even old enough to be called a man. Presumably her lover, although she seems never to have heard of him before. So I don't know quite how he did this, and I suppose he went to sea for some reason. I mean, I don't know if there's some idea of stars of the sea and whether he's idealized her. I mean, we are in the period of the kind of Platonic cult that Henrietta Maria encouraged. There are some plays about Platonic lovers and so on, and maybe that's what he's saying, is that he developed this Platonic passion for her, and then tried to carry it out.
Alan, sorry.
I must admit, quite a bit of what I was reading as Valladaura read to me as if there was a backstory between the two of them.
Yeah.
But Petrocella has now come across this story, gossip, whatever, tabloid headline, of Bonavida's out there looking for someone to rival the Queen.
Yeah.
Oh, well, everybody else, forget them, they're all trash.
Yeah.
And there is also a feel to me in some ways that Valladaura has actually conned and prepared his speeches, learned bits of quotations and love poetry and whatever, and is incredibly frustrated that he's not actually getting the right cues to use it.
Yeah. And Petrocella, although on one level she seems like another horrible conceited woman like Isabella, she also does talk like the kind of witty heroines that we get in these plays. I don't know whether she's going in that direction or whether she's going to be totally humiliated in the course of the play, but it could be either.
Yeah, I'm curious about this, because it's kind of like, well, also because like Aldana seems to be obsessed with honor and like yeah, just
one track character. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm intrigued. And then you've got stuff like poor sea calf, or like some expressions that Petrocella uses to like describe people. Alas, poor sea calf, or like come, you dim-sighted father. And it's like she's very, very modest.
But she seems to be a vague descendant of an awful lot of these their idea of witty women, who often to us look just plain rude most of the time.
But also like there's a part of me going, what is she wearing? Because the first thing her father says is, what on earth are you wearing? Have you conquered the West Indies to wear a gold mine on your back? So it's like this must be out of their budget, but also they have them in the house. So
I mean, it's confusing. She seems to think that Bonavida is going to turn up any minute, and she's sort of dressed for him. And then I thought there was a lot of confusion around that bit where Valladaura entered. She seemed to think at first she was addressing Bonavida, and then she thought, oh no, this must be a servant just telling us that Bonavida's coming. And then she finally realizes, no, it's neither of these things, and he's not coming at all. But it seemed to me there was some sort of mess in the text at that point.
but I did like sort of basically she talks fancy. Like she has this thing of oh yeah, where you wear a livery of his cut to the skin in line with crimson. It's like you could have just told us like he got injured, okay? That's just Heywood being fancy. I feel like showing off his like writing.
Yeah, because of course, clothes with cuts in them. I mean, that was a very expensive way of doing things. In fact, you made all these cuts in the sleeves, and then you pulled the undergarment through to sort of puff it out. It was a very attractive and very expensive effect. And so she's talking as if all these wounds, which he makes a point of saying haven't been dressed, which is awful and sort of ridiculous. You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I suppose we should find out what happens next, and also we don't know where this. I mean, we know that the second scene happened in Portugal or Spain, or well, that area. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious about location now.
Yeah, this could go anywhere. In fact,
Yeah.
it is. Look at the first. Look at the second line of the next scene. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, of course they have to come to England.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
All the really beautiful women.
Rachel has a thought. Or
I was just about to say what Lois just said. Well, that's where they're going to find the most beautiful women, obviously.
yeah. Yes. Actually, Rachel, I was going to ask you to read Bonavida for this part, just because it's a long speech frame. I mean, a long scene as well. So, Act 2, Scene 1. Yes. Enter Lord Bonavida and the clown.
After our tedious travels, we at length are safe arrived in England. What use hast made of our long voyage?
Not just travellers use, but by long practice I am now at length grown perfect. And the truth is, I can lie in any language.
But in our quest of this rare piece of beauty and virtue mixed, to rival the great princess, what thinkest thou of our trial made in Spain?
I think of it as I ever did. That's of a bottle of hay. The creature you talk of, a needle, a very Spanish needle, which I fear you will never live to hit full in the eye. Spain, there are so many Moors in it that I know you would hope of nothing else, less. Besides, the most beauties of Spain have been oft uncivil.
What then of Portugal?
Worse than the other. The women there are for the most part like their oranges. The fair at the outside, the rottener within, and the founder at the heart. For the rougher the skin, the country is too hot. Too hot.
What of the Russian then?
As of a country too cold. In cold countries, I know we should have a cold comfort. Besides, the women go wrapped in so much fur that of necessity they must have more hair than wit. Besides, they cannot be wise. They have so much ado to keep themselves warm. More than that, what might the prince and princess think if, after all our long travels, we should come home and present them with a rush?
Which only taking of her great title off is worth more than herself. Of Italy, then give me the true censure.
The clean contrary way. Oh, my lord, there are so many Italian locks that I know it was impossible. Your own key should open them all. Moreover, these are naturally jealous of their women. It's probable their women naturally give them cause.
For France.
Pox, should we speak of that? Knowing what is bred in the bone will hardly out of the flesh.
The women of High Germany?
A place I should highly stand for, if the princess had imposed on a challenge for drinking.
Of the Low Countries, then?
In Flushing there is good riding, but not without danger. For many at high tide have been like to have been cast away in the road. At Middleborough, night or day, you could scarcely find the exchange empty. At Bristles, if you remember, you were used but roughly. At Sluice we were both well washed. Nimmingham bid you look to your sconce, and Ostend beware the cat. Den Haag is full of witches, And had we but touched at Rotterdam, 10 to 1, we'd never come off sound men. Much ado we had to find Newport. Therefore, if you ever come to Bergen, so you make it wisely.
And now there's hope I shall. This Albion, that fitly bears the name of his chalky cliffs, breeds wondrous choice of beauties, wise and lovely, scarce to be matched in all the world besides, amongst which I have took particular view of one, whom had the Trojan ravisher beheld, Troy had still stood, the queen of love disgraced, and she alone had gained the golden prize, for which the three celestial beauties strove.
I grant you the face, but if she should prove rotten at the heart, there's the question.
I think none be made. First for her birth I have inquired her noble, for her breeding it hath been mongst her equals, and so far from least taxation to the sale of tongues, it merits imitation. Of her chastity some proofs I have made, and found it like the diamond, save by a diamond never to be wrought. Could opportunity have moved words tempted, persuasions took effect, or gifts prevailed, beneath my much importance she had fallen. But like a promontory rock she stands, at all the curled ocean's wrath unmoved, telling the gusts and bearing every storm. Yet on such virtues are her bases fixed. She is not to be shaken, then in her my travels take their period.
Then I would she and you were agreed. You might come to a full point. Here she comes. Or never. Make a full conclusion and write finish.
And before we get the entrance of Leon, well, the person we've mentioned and her daughter, I just want the pause to take all that in. That was a lot of, I feel like that's a lot of information, and like clearly they've spent a lot of time traveling, which obviously the play doesn't, I mean, because it's moving at such a pace, it kind of doesn't really tell you.
Yeah.
It cuts right to the action, basically. Alan, any thoughts?
Early sex tourism? Plus, let's have a random gag at any foreigner we can think of.
Yeah.
Maybe, but also maybe sort of it's more well, I mean, gentlemen were known for having to take, well, not taking a gap year, but the more well-traveled you were, it was kind of,
Yeah.
especially young men, like young 20s. I don't know. As far as I remember, like maybe earlier, younger. Any thoughts as far? Clearly, we think that it's going to be sort of like if I don't know how you prove chastity and found it like a diamond. Yeah.
Well, nothing can cut a diamond but another diamond.
Yeah, but I mean, how do you? Well, I know what happens like behind closed doors, but then, yeah, it's just I don't know. How long have they been traveling for first? And
Must be about a year.
Yeah, and also like Bonavida must be he must be very like silver-tongued and sort of by this point and very determined to go home and like mic drop the queen or something. I don't know, just all that imagery is in Flushing, like Low Countries and Flushing there is good writing. He was, I don't know.
Yeah, there are just loads of probably local jokes. I think some of those are puns and references to things that the audience would know and we don't. I mean, the stuff about Middleborough Sluice and Beware the Cat at Ostend. And I mean, there's clearly a pun on Rotterdam. If we'd been in Rotterdam, we never would have come off sound because, of course, we would have rotted away.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot more of this. Yeah. We had to find Newport. I don't know. Bergen. You know, I don't really get a lot of this, but and that type of scene where somebody with their servant exchanges generalizations about countries. I can think of two others in plays that we can't talk about here, but I bet that's where he's got the idea.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't put it past him as much as he goes, oh yes, this is totally unoriginal thing. But hey, this is a good idea. But then I think it's also the way he writes. It's just it's like a pleasure to speak the words once you know what they mean.
Yeah.
Of course. Anyway, sorry for interrupting mid-scene. We shall now meet this wonderful
Yes.
chaste beauty, and not proud, called Leonera and her daughter. So take it away.
Daughter, what think you of this stranger?
As a stranger,
Of his carriage and compliments?
as things for which he has travelled. 'Tis easy for him that hath the liberty of many grounds to pick himself a choice nosegay, and he that hath travelled so many countries, out of every one peculiarizing what's best, with what small difficulty may such a one appear complimental,
His proffers to you were large.
and the performance may perhaps prove like his journey, long.
What think you of his person?
That there's many one cannot praise so well as he that's better beneficed.
But say he had power to perform all that he hath promised.
Only this, that I have power in myself to say more than I have ever yet promised him, or you to utter.
Do you not hear a talk of utter? A shame, sir. Either utter your mind now to the full, or else utterly give it over.
Madam, what say you to my suit?
Oh, I needs must say, sir, it becomes you well, graces your person and your person it. I like both stuff and fashion.
Oh, sweet lady, 'tis good to play with such as used to sport, but with the staid be serious.
What's there in talk? Will I hold some discourse rather with the old gentleman, because she shall not interrupt them. May it please your old ladyship?
And he takes the mother aside.
Out of this fellow I may find perhaps that which his master would have loath revealed. I'll join him in conference.
Since you tax me of jest, I charge you, sir, henceforth to speak all earnest, or stand mute.
I vow it by my greatest bliss on earth, my hopes I have in you.
I'll try your faith. Have you, in all the countries you have travelled, never made proof of lady?
Yes, in all, and in each clime, of many.
Nay, I thought what I should find you. Trust a stranger's love as gold to court the wind. If then such numbers, why, after all these trials, make you me the last of all your sales?
Last of my hopes, period of my wishes, had you said, I should have answered then, only because of all you are most perfect.
Now you flatter.
O Lord, sayest thou?
Aye, and I assure your ladyship, allied to the best grandos of Spain. Hey, more than so.
As I confess you perfect, I entreat, let not my merited praises make you proud, and vie your own birth. I shall wonder then. Know, madam, that I left my country, Spain, and there my many honours, not of pleasure, but by compulsive force, unwillingly. My voyage purposely to find out you, which ere I could, I have travelled kingdoms through, searched courts, examined cities, nay, even villages.
For me?
For you, for the chief paragon of beauty matched with virtue. Therefore you, for one to rival the great Spanish princess, matchless in both. Through half the world, save you, indeed I flatter not, you are that mine. O lady, might I truly say that mine? No India yields, save this, but thine, the sun. To outshine that candle, none but this clear splendor dims in her imperfect glories. You by this shall win yourself a name through all the world, and purchase admiration. Me that so have prized you and esteemed you, marking you mongst thousands for a peace unparalleled. Before all things, my country, honors, friends, that else like a poor exile forfeit all, and lady, you the cause on't. If my love, grounded upon such strong opinion, merit repulse, if you will lose yourself and hazard me, that have my head engaged to make this good, I only shall report the strangest thing in my long search I find, betwixt beauty with virtue mixed, proved both unkind.
Which should I be? Pray, give me leave to pause, and then expect my answer.
And hath he choosed her out amongst so many?
Yes, and means to make her a great lady, to possess her of all his fortunes, to put down all the prime ladies of Spain, and for beauty and virtue to be preferred before the great princess herself.
To this, should she not willingly assent, she were no more my daughter.
Now, your answer.
Should this be true, that you prefer this face before the beauties of so many climes, and that your life and means solely depend there to expose it freely, I should much digress from honor to neglect such love. And should I not in unseen virtue strive to equal that seen beauty you so praise, I should then much wrong that great character you have bestowed upon me.
Which you shall not, daughter, I say you shall not. Sir, she's yours, or I disclaim her forever.
Pray, good mother, a little pardon me. How shall I know what here you promised you can there make good?
If you distrust his word, take mine, which will pass in Spain for more myriads than the best squires of England for farthing tokens.
That you may know it is not lust but love, and the true speculation I have taken, in both these adjuncts that proclaim you rare, that 'tis to have you denizened in Spain, be instated in my liberal fortunes there, to appear in court a foreign miracle, and not to make you here my prostitute. I only beg your promise that, being granted, I'll back into my country tell the princess what here in England I have seen and found. My peace being made, I will return thus far, to fix you in that sphere a splendent star. And this is all I crave.
'Tis just and honest. In this can be no fallacy at all.
As truth, then, I accept it, and am yours.
And lady, I your creature, for by you I am new made, as mistress of this contract, except this ring, which I never part withal, but to myself in person.
Not in death, 'twill shall with me to my grave.
To prove your constancy, one imposition more. There may be trains laid to entrap your love, to injure you and forfeit me. Therefore, till my return, which shall be with what suddenness I can, be shown unto no stranger.
These I vow, and pray you keep this token with that care that I shall your commands. On this presume, of which, though all Hesperia you may boast, though my face please, yet shall my virtue most.
Thou hast lost, Isabella, and I gained me an empire by my travel. I by you am new created, being lost and gone, with this most sweet addition, two in one.
A good hearing, and I and the old gentlewoman are both witnesses to the bargain.
And they exit. And I don't know how I feel about that scene. I feel like, Anyway, yes, Rachel.
The exchange of tokens that are a test of loyalty sounds like another play that we can't mention here.
Yeah.
I imagine it's going to go wrong before it gets fixed.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't possibly lose the ring that this person gave you, and he'll travel like however many miles to get to the country to say that he found the thing, and then go back and can't possibly go wrong.
Yeah. Something's going to happen. Helena's going to be falsely accused of being unfaithful or something.
Of course.
Yeah, and he's also got to go by sea anyway to get to Spain, I would imagine. Well, he could ride through France, I suppose, but if he goes by sea, then he'll probably get shipwrecked or captured or something.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it because
he has to cross the channel at the very least. So
Yeah.
yeah, and she's evidently English, of course.
Of course.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But also start thinking of why would Isabella believe him?
Yeah. Yeah, it's odd because he didn't say anything about taking a portrait. I mean, or even having a,
Yeah,
you know,
they're just
portrait
gonna take his word
miniature.
for, oh, I found her. Do I have your permission
Yeah.
to go and get her? It
Yeah.
is a little weird.
Yeah, she ought to go with him right away, obviously. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Well,
very
yeah. But then it's kind of also like I feel that there is it makes me think of various other, well, not plays actually. It makes me think of musicals and operas, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about this because all the courting and build up to this obviously has happened off stage, and you get this is the resolution of that effort. And yeah, also, does he not have some sort of STD by this point? Because having sampled all the trials of all the women in all the world, or
yeah. He
Is
may have
that what making trial means? I mean,
I don't know.
I hope not. No, surely he sampled them at a distance. He hasn't been actually seducing all these women. He couldn't. I mean, the whole point is chastity. Yeah, I mean, presumably he just got as far as getting them to accept his gifts or something, which would be enough probably to prove that they were of easy virtue.
Yeah. I did like Leonora's line, which is like, if she doesn't, agree to this, she were no more my daughter. Yeah. But I do like how you've got like I can imagine it like being staged where you have the two, the clown and Leonora on one side of the stage, and Hellena and Bonavida on the other side. So like sort of if you get the crosstalk as well.
Yeah, it's a really interestingly staged scene.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just like what happens in Goethe's Faust, where you've got Faust and Gretchen, and then Mephistopheles and Frau Martha. I mean, that idea of a kind of two parallel kind of courtship scenes, where one is sort of serious and one is comic. Yeah.
Alan, yeah.
Yeah, and again, we've got a trope we've seen before on a number of occasions of the clown, the rustic, the lower caste character, who has got a bit more common sense than the aristo.
Oh yeah. He's also funny. It's like, well, if you can't believe him, take my word for it.
Yeah.
It's a hilarious line.
If you just
maybe
Rachel. Yeah, sorry. Rachel had a thought, maybe.
Hellena also is a bit more circumspect than her mother. She says, how do I know that this is true? But then she accepts the word of the clown rustic, right? As proof. Her mother's ready to give her away. And she says, hang on, but the clown's word is sufficient. So her.
Yeah, no, I think the clown saying, if you just trust his word, take mine, is probably a joke. I mean, I don't think she would actually.
But she does.
Well, but he also.
Lynn, yeah, sorry.
But Bonavida says in the interim, here's my evidence. Nothing's going to happen between us now. I'm going to go away and come back. And that will prove that I'm serious. And I think maybe the implication he's going to come back escorted, so there will be witnesses to their betrothal and so forth. He'll come back attended with members of the Spanish/Portuguese court to fetch her in pomp. So that's so if she can wait for that, then they will bring her to Spain. So that's my guess, is that I'm going to go away and come back, and I'm going to come back attended with witnesses to the story that I'm telling you about, and then we will all bring you back to Spain.
And meanwhile, you're going to stay in the deep freeze. Yeah, I mean,
right. Meanwhile, don't talk to strangers. It's like that 80s song.
Yeah.
I think it's Duran.
Yeah, but then like there's a part of me going, it's kind of like there are many holes here. Like there's a part of me going, this is basically Madame Butterfly, but it could go really, really wrong.
Well,
I don't
at
know.
least she's not married. She's not been seduced. I mean, she is basically free at any rate. I mean, from her point of view, it may still be devastating if he doesn't come back or if this doesn't happen, but at least nothing has actually harmed her yet.
Yeah. There was another point I wanted to make. I feel like I think one reason that this scene feels weird is because he's so like Bonavida is kind of we don't get this impression that he's actually seen all these women or tested them or whatever, or like that there's been a journey, I guess. I don't know, maybe that's just me. And this part could be disingenuous, like there is that doubt or ambiguity. I don't know, maybe it's just me.
No, I think the whole thing is very sketchy. I mean, this hasn't really been developed to any extent, presumably because I suppose it would just be taken as being like a fairy tale of some sort. But he also doesn't give the impression of being at all in love with her. I mean, he's just doing this, and now he's finally solved the problem, and so he will. I suppose he's worked out that if he's got to find somebody equal to the queen, then something's got to be done with her. So he better marry her.
Lynn. Yeah,
I kind of got the feeling that he's on this mission to meet the queen's challenge and happens to fall in love with the woman he thinks is the winner. And he says something about like, not only am I going to win the bet, I'm doubly lucky because I'm going to have this lovely, wonderful woman to my wife when it's all over.
And nothing can possibly go wrong because storms do not happen at sea, or anything else. Though I guess like that means that like if our predictions are correct or whatever, Helena's line about the performance may perhaps prove like his journey long, aside from being hilarious, is actually some almost semi-prophetic. Like it could be kind of, the actual the resolution for this scene happens, but then like the previous parts of the stuff that happened off stage is resolved, but then the performance of it has yet to come, therefore it will be even longer for her. I don't know. Anyway, we should move on to Act 2, Scene 2, unless there are any other thoughts to clarify. Enter Valladaura solus.
Prove no act, though ne'er so well becoming. Art, so well beautified, phrase aptly languaged, to the very tone and access of the time. But seems in me defamed and rustical. None can endure my sight. All things I do are construed to the worst. I walk the streets, salute all I meet. None resaluteth me, but look askew and point and laugh at me, as who should say, see Petrocella's scorn. And that which wounds me deeper than love can, the more I strive to make me worth her love, so much more the unworthy she refutes me.
Enter Pineda and Centella conferring.
Faith, what thinkest of Bonavida's undertaking?
As of the man himself, most frivolous and idle. He parallel the queen? They speak of me and seal it with a smile, that I could sink and hide me in the centre.
Old Valladaura, well returned from sea, we hear.
Of my disgrace? What, a swift wing has rumour. You met a bold and noble opposite. Have you heard that too?
But beauteous Petrocella.
She has told all. I shall be balladed, sung up and down by minstrels. Gentlemen, though my success fell short of my intent, let it meet fair construction.
It deserves no less.
Your noble bearing has given our modern gallants plain song to descant on. They scoff me palpably, but noble friends, such I have ever reckoned you. Let's change, discourse a while in private, walk and confer.
I'm wondering if that's a stage direction. Enter.
I I think it is actually logical part of the
Yes.
speech.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would work either way.
Yeah, but some of this is very confused. I mean, there
Mm.
bits I couldn't make sense of grammatically at all.
Mm. Yeah,
Hmm.
it is a bit strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
let's move on. Enter a Turkish captain, Ferrers and Manhurst or Manhurst, and various prisoners, or are they prisoners? I'm not sure. With various others and the servant.
Of all the Christians this arm ever tried, you come the nearest. Men. What country?
England.
You're nobly spirited. Have you got your ransoms?
None but our lives.
Them thus we tender.
They are jewels we rather wish to wear than part withal. But need commands us to make instant sale. To the mail market with 'em. Each man carries his price upon his shoulder. Go, go, try the market. Ourself will stay and answer customers.
You've given both me and my peers satisfaction. I shall report you noble, and esteem my credit much richer than I did. As I said, my opposer had man enough in him, but indeed more than I've known in many.
The land breeds few other. What's here? A market of slaves?
Manly proportions. Ha! Montferrers?
Death, my mortal foe, how is my poor life hunted?
You do not know me?
I must give you the lie to say I do.
'Tis surely he. Yet if it be, by mischance, has made him much unlike himself. When he and I vied valour on the purple deck, he wore a look more manly. I'll try further. Were you ne'er a captain of a ship at sea?
I had ne'er been slave unto a Turk ashore else.
Of England? Your name Ferrers?
Rather than deny my name and country, I'll acknowledge anything base or deadly. I confess you know me.
You shall know me too, ere we part.
I shall.
And to some cost you shall, trust to it.
Exit Valladaura.
If fate has writ my name in her black book, and this, the hindmost minute of my hour, I scorn to bribe the beldam to wipe it out again.
You know the gentleman conferred with you.
For a bold foe and a proud Spaniard.
You may have cause to say so. Has sent you ransom.
My ransom? Why? Why should he ransom me? Nay, rather would, why should I ask that? I saw inveterate hate flame in his burning eye. He frees me from slight bondage of the Turk to slave me to himself and exercise new tyranny. He meets a living grave that's vassal unto him, was once his slave. That fate o'ertakes me, I will not accept it.
Your reason?
Not that I desire to live slave to a Turk or fear the bloody usage of an ambitious Spaniard. Death is but death, what shape soe'er it come in.
Why are ye so loath to meet him then?
Though you cannot enforce so much, I'll tell you. See you this man, one that with me hath fronted the wrath, the utmost violence of fate, should mine own countryman, nay, natural mother, or my kind sister, whose fair eyes I honor, should the best lord of those have sent my ransom, had it come single without his, as this, I should have spurned it and sent it back.
You would, sir. We shall return so much.
And be persuaded to find usage answerable to your contempt.
Exit Centella and Pineda, who were apparently walking earlier and then they returned. And okay, yeah. Moving on. We shall discuss this shortly. Why, for my sake, do you neglect your freedom?
Because for mine thou hast not loved thy life, but thrown it upon dangers more than common. Because for me thou left'st thy native land, father and friends, and to make me a fortune, unmade thine own hand, they know, and to make me a fortune unmade thine own, gavest both thyself and fate wholly to me. Think me not so unjust to lose a jewel made o'er to me in trust. But they return.
And indeed, they re-enter. Pineda and
Here's both their ransoms.
and throws down bags, presumably full of money.
And there's both the slaves. A better pennyworth of flesh and blood Turk never sold.
Nor Christian but a Spaniard would e'er have bought.
Oh yes, your English Jews, they'll buy and sell their fathers, prostrate their wives, and make money of their own children. The male stews can witness that. Come on, sir, you must along.
How must?
And shall, prating you English slave.
And enter Valladaura again.
Do you know me now?
Yes, truly, for a tyrant and a bloody hangman. Had I known thee half so well, when on the deck I had thee at my mercy, I would have ground my sword upon thy bones and writ my freedom in thy blood.
I live, and do the like by thee.
And I breathe yet to dare thee to the utmost, and may win more honor of thee than by my manly suffering, than thou by base inflicting. My friend and I, like two chained bullets, side by side, will fly through the jaws of death.
A strong resolve, but I shall quickly weaken. Sunder them. Within there, quick! That paper will point out diet and lodging for him.
And Valladaura speaks to the servant.
Sunder them, that word falls colder on me than the room of death.
And you'll not fly like bullets in the jaws of death and danger.
Hear me, Valladaura, since thou wilt needs take up the attribute and name of tyrant, study thy trade perfect, soil it not in performance, like a true artist, degree thy tortures. Like an angry tempest, rise calmly first, and keep thy worst rage last. Torment us jointly, sunder us first, a plague so deadly that whate'er follows will seem but a cordial. Wouldst have devised after 1,000 tortures one to mad my manly patience or to split my heart, it had been done in this one accent, heart.
Divide 'em so.
Mezentius' cruelty comes short of yours. He joined, but you divide a living man in two.
Right, Spanish pride.
I used not you so, though. But noble sir, how well hast thou merited living?
So I'll die. Thy thoughts an antidote against tyranny.
Born on that confidence, lose not one tear, nor spend a sigh, let guilty cowards fear.
You'll find a change.
You're churlish, nor can we look to find usage more gentle. Revenge is unconfined.
And so shall mine be. What the art of men knows of tormentings, mine shall inflict, and can. This parting of you is the least and first of infinite to come.
I dare the worst. And basically everybody exits who's on stage. So Valladaura, Centella, Pineda, Ferrers, Manhurst, and the Turk captain. I feel like we went down a rabbit hole, like sort of that is kind of irrelevant to the main, well, not irrelevant, but it's not relevant to the love plot, which is kind of, I don't know which is the A plot and which is the B plot, which, yeah.
Yeah.
Lois.
Yeah, Valladaura is still obsessed with the idea that he's been disgraced by the way Petrocella has talked to him. And I guess he's somehow got to win her in order to get his honor back or something. And I think what he's actually trying to do in ransoming this person who had defeated him in battle, which is the thing she kept mocking him about, he's probably going to try to treat him with great magnanimity. I mean, he's ransomed both him and his friend, even though he's separated them at this point. And I don't know. I mean, maybe he's going to try to be so incredibly virtuous and magnanimous that Petrocella will be overwhelmed and, be impressed by him and maybe get over her nutty idea that Bonavida is going to fall for her and make her the top queen. I don't know. I mean, that's the only way I can see this going.
Yeah. Alan. Yeah.
I must admit the bit about separating them the image that I got in my head was the two were shackled together.
Yeah, same.
So all he was doing was suggesting that they break the chain links between them.
Mm.
Not that they were going to be separated in the sense that we would maybe use the term in more modern language of, separate rooms, chaps.
No, it seems to me that they're so devastated by the idea of being parted. I mean, this is meant to be the great friendship, and they do compare Valladaura to Mezentius, who is a character in the Aeneid, who apparently used to bind living men to dead men in a kind of horrible way.
As one does.
Yeah.
I mean, in most of
Them
the
bloody
places,
Greeks again.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure. Blame me. No, yeah, I'm not Greek. Anyway. Yeah, no, what I was gonna say was it's interesting how it takes over. Like there's this shift of like, you start with the Petrocella plot of like, oh yes, I am the most beautiful woman, reflecting the queen's behavior. And then it slowly insidiously takes over the play. But I don't know what's gonna happen next because I don't know. I'm intrigued. I'm imagining that Valladaura is either going to keep them like physically separated for misinformation reasons, like sort of so one can't support the other kind of thing, like Orpheus Eurydice type things, except without the romance involved. Then
or maybe not without.
Yeah, Lynn, you have thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, my hope was like, as Lois was saying, that Valladaura is paying the ransom of his once mortal enemy and his mortal enemy's best friend in order to show what a good guy he is, to be, magnanimous and merciful and now that you're free, now that I've bought you, you're free. But he doesn't do that, and I kind of expected that to happen in this scene. And he does threaten them, or threatens Ferrers. Revenge is uncontrolled, says Ferrers, and Valladaura says, and so shall mine be, and basically says, whatever mankind knows about torturing other people, I'm going to do that. Separating you is the first and least of the things I'm going to do to you. So is that ironic? Is he actually going to torment him by setting him free? Because it would be sort of a humiliation for Ferrers to basically owe his life to his enemy. So is that kind of an ironic way of saying, I'm going to make you beholden to me, that's how I'm going to torture you? Or is he really planning on making him a servant or torturing him? It's really unclear.
Yeah.
Hence the suspense.
Lois has thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it creates suspense, which is what we want here. I mean, there's something rather similar in A Woman Killed with Kindness, where which is quite a lot earlier, but it's still Heywood, in which I think it's what's his name, Sir Charles and Sir Francis Acton. I think Acton eventually frees Charles from prison and does various things because he wants to marry his sister. I mean, I can't remember the whole thing, but it's a similar thing anyway, where he's expecting that somebody will take awful vengeance on him, and then the person turns out to be nice. Plus, of course, the main plot of that play, where the heroine who has committed adultery thinks that her husband is going to tear her to pieces, and he treats her by the standards of the day quite mercifully, though modern readers tend not to think that.
This is an interesting scene, especially because like as soon as Valladaura entered, sort of going, oh, they kind of everybody hates me, woe is me. I was thinking of like Lynn's comment earlier of is he 12?
So that's another reason where I'm having a hard time reading this moment, is that Valladaura hasn't been characterized as a particularly noble or self-aware or wise person. So he doesn't really seem to have good judgment. He seems a little narcissistic, like nobody has ever suffered that, but they're talking about me, aren't they? So he doesn't really seem like the kind of guy who would make the noble gesture of freeing, buying his enemy out of slavery and then freeing him. That isn't super consistent with the character that's been sketched of him.
Yeah.
It's really hard to know what to make of him, actually. I mean, I can't make out whether he's meant to be a perfectly admirable person and suitable match for Petrocella, and she just reduces him to a complete mess by being so rude to him and, rude about this fight and, why didn't you win it? And so on. And then everything follows from that. He does temporarily go mad. This is kind of love madness and assumption that everybody is making fun of him. And I can't make out whether they are or not, because on the whole, his friends seem fairly sympathetic, but they could all be laughing behind his back. It's really quite vague, actually, what's going on there.
Yeah, it seems to be more like the gossip is taking over, but it's not really like explicit. I don't know, maybe they might be whispering about just fun stuff, or I don't know, other people. Yeah, I'm trying to work out why we're introduced to this other plot, but I mean, I guess we'll find out later.
The play wouldn't be long enough without it.
True. Or maybe the company would not have, like, King's Men. I'm guessing they would have had to. King's Men, yeah. They would. He would have to give them parts as opposed to, I don't know.
Yes, I'm wondering which one John Lowen was playing, because he went on acting for them throughout. He's the guy that played parts like Sir Epicure Mammon. He got fatter and fatter as he went on. So I'm just wondering which of these people he can possibly be. But he always tended to play the really blunt, honest soldier type. And so, it could have been either the honest courtier Bellamina or someone like Valladaura, but I mean, he was one of their leading actors, one of the two company managers, really. And then I guess that I think what's his name, the man that sort of took over running the company, whose name is not going out of my head at the moment, but anyway, he was more the kind of romantic lead type, and so I don't know which of these. He was probably playing the other one anyway. One of them is Valladaura, and one of them was Bonavida.
I guess this scene means that we get the sort of time separation between. I mean, not separation, but you get the duration of Bonavida having time to travel to Spain, which is going to be quite interesting. Rachel, did you have any thoughts about this scene, or in fact, the whole play, since we're this is our last scene.
I was sort of surprised by the arrival of a Turkish sea captain and a slave market. I'm wondering whether we're going to return to those in some way. Whether they're just throwaways here, en route to the challenge to find a more beautiful, more virtuous woman than the queen. It's interesting to me that we've seen that the choice is a Turk and a slave market. I find that
Yeah, but of course it has to be a slave market run, or like a Turk captain selling humans to as slaves, because of course an Englishman would never do that, except maybe in Christian turned Turk or something, which we've not read yet, I think, unless we have and I missed it. Which
you have at some point. I've read it anyway, but I think you have done it at some point. Yeah, I mean Heywood likes ships at sea and people captured. You've done The Fair Maid of the West, haven't you? And
yes, and East. Wait, we've done East, North. No, I don't know how many there are.
Fortune by Land and Sea. I mean, people are always getting aboard ships, and the results are usually not too good. And they very often do end up in foreign countries. And, the whole thing in Fair Maid of the West is that the Muslim characters are so overwhelmed by the English Christians that they all want to convert. And I don't know, just a load of old wishful thinking.
Yeah.
It's the sophistication, of course. Lynn, any final thoughts about this? Well, I mean, the shape of the play as well, not just.
I'm definitely in we shall see mode. I mean, having these two parallel plots isn't necessarily a problem, depending on how skillfully they get woven together at the end. I'm kind of a fan of the sort of romance fairy tale genre, so I'm hopeful that in the end Isabella learns her lesson and learns to be
Yeah.
and Petrocella relents and accepts Valladaura and realizes she's been a little bit of a twit. The couples get together and people learn their lessons, and that there's growth and redemption. I can definitely see the potential for that, and I think that could be really fun and satisfying. But curse of the final session.
Yeah, we have 2 more sessions though, so
We have 2 more
yeah,
days. So,
yeah. This will be fun. He said. Please don't kill me. It's an interesting play also, just because like you do have. I mean, he has A plots and B plots, like Fair Maid, which Lois mentioned earlier. You get like strands of plots that overlap, but much later in the play. So I don't know how late that will be. So Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to do final thoughts at this stage. We're a third of the way into it.
Yeah.
I must admit that I'm conflicted about that sequence earlier between the rustic and his boss, because it struck me that there was an awful lot of potential material there, which was only done as reporting by the rustic as to all of these places they'd visited and what they'd seen. And there are some authors who would have probably stuck a scene in with each one, with sort of random local ladies, just to pad the thing out a bit.
Yeah.
So it's going to be difficult to see which way this goes until we get maybe the next third of it under our belts. But I think I would agree with the comment that to a certain extent, sticking the slave market scene in at this point at least does give a cover for the necessary travel for Bonavida back to base, as it were, and giving time for this precious ring to be picked up by a passing golem or whatever.
Or, costume change, in other words. Lois, any final thoughts? Or, final thoughts for right now?
No, I think I've pretty much said what I've thought of it. I mean, it seems to be an unusually absurd plot, and I don't know whether there is any sense behind it of the whole scandal, or what the sensational episode of the attempted Spanish marriage of Prince Charles and his travel with Buckingham to Spain and the whole thing. I mean, because what we've got here is an English lady being proposed to by a Spaniard, and apparently going to be taken back to Spain. So it's kind of reversal of that situation. But I don't know how far audiences would still be thinking about this, foreign marriages, because they haven't really had it. I mean, they had it years ago with Mary Tudor marrying Philip of Spain, and then of course Elizabeth didn't marry, and James was already married to Anna of Denmark when he came to the throne. So the whole question of who Prince Charles would marry was the really big deal, and and in 1625 he finally did marry the French princess. So that sort of thing might still be in their minds, I suppose, just traveling great distances. Which of course James had done. I mean, he actually did sail to Denmark. Wasn't there an episode where they kind of nearly drowned or something, or were shipwrecked, and they blamed the witch for it and so on and so forth? That's right. Or is that just me? No, that really happened. The tempest came up, and it was quite scary. And they did in fact have some famous witch trials at Berwick of witches who were thought to have raised the storm. I mean, that was part of why James always believed in witchcraft, because he thought he'd seen a demonstration of it.
because of course bad weather never happens.
Yeah, but of course, I mean, he was actually quite skeptical in many cases. I mean, there was some girl that kept pretending to be possessed and have visions, and apparently, I mean, he did this rather crude thing of sort of throwing her skirts over her head, whereupon she completely sobered up and, was predictably furious. And as far as he was concerned, that dealt with it. But it was I mean, this funny sort of mixture of idiocy and common sense that he quite often displayed.
Yeah. Whereas I think in this play, I mean, aside from like the historical context, that we might be missing references and stuff. I find it interesting because it's kind of like you get. I mean, Lynn had mentioned fairy tales on just off the bat at the beginning. And he does mention like Aesop's Cur and the sort of all those. He hasn't mentioned Robin Goodfellow, but like I feel like it's a matter of time before we get a fairy turning up. Although obviously they didn't seem to. I don't know. Later plays don't seem to portray fairies as much, unless that's just me. But yeah, I am intrigued by this play, and I'm curious to see what will happen next. Although I don't know if I want to know what happened. I don't know. Yeah, because it doesn't have a through line yet. Or well, the through line was resolved in Act 2, Scene 1. So for Bonavida anyway. So the next bit is to.
We still have obstacles to be thrown up in the resolution of that, because he didn't bring her back to Spain yet. He's like, okay, you wait here. I'm going to go tell them about you, and then I'm going to come back and get you. Like, so much can go wrong.
Yeah, maybe Petrocella will somehow figure out a way of impersonating her.
Like bed trick as we usually sometimes get. Any other thoughts you would like to throw in? Okay. Well, on that note, I would like to thank the wonderful readers for their wonderful reading. See you next time, I guess. We would be termed divine.